In a Love Nest with the Aloof CEO. Chapter 1. My name is Tobias Ford. Sir, I only need 300,000. Please? Skylar Jones trembled on her feet in front of the man, with her head hung low. Apart from the dim lighting, she was shrouded in darkness. Right then, a tall and broad-shouldered figure approached her step by step. The man grasped her chin, and panic rose in her when she was met with his icy and intimidating gaze. With her heart in her throat, Skylar swallowed thickly before continuing. I know 300,000 isn't a small amount, but I really need this money. When the man heard her say that 300,000 wasn't a small amount, the corners of his lips arched into a cold-blooded smile. Suddenly, Skylar was pulled into his arms, completely caught off guard. And in just mere seconds, the pleasant scent of white sandalwood invaded her senses, almost drowning her. Immediately afterward, his cold voice sounded above her head and brought her back to the harsh reality. How do you expect me to believe you? Well, you know what they say, talk is cheap. Though scared out of her wits, Skylar suppressed the fear gripping her heart and replied, give it a try. If you find that I am lying, I'll return all the money to you. As soon as she said that, a palm, cold as the grave, clasped the back of her neck, chilling her to the bones. She instinctively thrashed against him, trying to escape, but the man only tightened his other hand around her waist even more. Hence, she stopped struggling, not daring to move a muscle. This was the only way to get the money for her boyfriend, Jeremy's medical expenses. The moment she remained still, the man cupped Skylar's face with his palm as he remarked in a low and hoarse voice, I am not interested in getting my hands dirty by personally verifying it. Right then, the door to the room opened from the outside. A blinding flash, followed by the footsteps of what seemed like an army of soldiers, came through the door. At that moment, several men in black suits bombarded that dim room as they strode in a neat formation. Skylar's eyes widened in shock, and she turned back to look at the man hidden in the shadows. Under the dingy lights, she could vaguely discern his chiseled features and the smile playing on his lips, which looked impossibly gentle. Her lips quivered, and she argued in a shaky voice, we agreed on one. What's going on now? Excuse me, sir, but you should be honest when doing business. Forget it. The deal is off. Feeling slightly irritated, the man waved his hand with a frosty expression on his face. Then Skylar, still struggling, was forcibly taken away by the men in black. In the operating room, they secured Skylar to the operating table with her dignity in shreds. The freezing temperature here made her feel as though she was thrown into an ice-cold cavern. She lay on the cold table, groggy and completely drained of strength, with only her mind wide awake. What are they going to do to me? Is this the end? Am I going to die just like this? Terror coursed through her veins as thoughts ran wild through her mind. Gradually, her breathing grew weak. With all the courage she could gather, she whimpered, are you going to take my kidney? Or my liver? Just so you know, both aren't in good condition. The results from my physical examination even stated that I have a fatty liver. Nevertheless, the two women in white coats did not answer. At that moment, Skylar felt like crying as she lamented silently. Just what did I get myself into? I just wanted to make some money. But why is it so hard? Why did some people have it easy, while I? Her train of thoughts was interrupted when the automated doors of the operating room slid open as someone walked in. One of the women wearing a white coat nodded to Tobias Ford. Mr. Ford. Yes, all good. Mr. Ford. Hearing their voices, Skylar struggled to sit up. But she had only lifted herself halfway when one doctor pushed her back onto the operating table. She shuddered as coldness seeped through her skin once again. Under the intense glare of the surgical lamp, she could finally see the man's face clearly. His face was cold and aloof, completely void of emotions, just like an ice sculpture. But his eyes shone with authority. His piercing gaze made her quake with fear. But to her surprise, his voice was tender when he spoke. "Are you ready, Miss Jones?" Skylar was strung as tight as a bow right then, and her muscles stiffened with trepidation. Nevertheless, she closed her eyes in resignation, immediately dredging up the image of her beloved fiancé lying on the hospital bed, looking pale and sickly. Only then could she numb herself to her fear. She wasn't betraying Jeremy. All she was doing now was to ensure that she could live with the love of her life forever. Prior to the act, the man sat on the edge of the operating table and placed his arms on both sides of her waist while uttering in a low voice, "My name is Tobias Ford. Don't you ever forget that." However, Skylar's mind was in shambles now, and she didn't even want to be here, let alone know this man's name. In fact, she hoped she would never see him again after tonight. Does it have to be here? Even the ward is better than this place. Otherwise, you're gonna have to pay me more. Skylar had basically forced out these words through clenched teeth. She grabbed Tobias' arm, shaking slightly. "Fine," Tobias agreed in a deep and gruff voice. He found this girl intriguing because even at a time like this, she still did not forget her goal. Then Skylar closed her eyes and blocked out all her senses. After a long time, the operating room was unusually silent. When the deed was done, Tobias stared intently at the girl who had passed out like the dead on the operating table. Her face was still flushed from what happened earlier, and her breath still rapid and shallow. Ignoring the woman, his gaze quickly shifted to the white cloth covering the operating table. That glaring red stain resembled a fully bloomed plum blossom standing stark against a blanket of snow. It was an alluring sight to behold. Last night, this girl had lost her virginity to him. Welcome to download Flipread app to read more chapters of In a Love Nest with the Aloof CEO novel online.